everyone, today we're looking at 2.10 Causes of Migration. Our tidbit of the day is that here and now in September 2020, women in Afghanistan have just won the right to have their names included on their children's birth certificates. Think about that. You could not have your name on your own child's birth certificate, and that essentially means that you have no legal rights to your child. There's no way of proving it. So our learning objective is 2.10, explain how different causal factors encourage migration. And we're looking at migration commonly being divided into push and pull factors, and that push and pull factors and intervening opportunities and obstacles can be cultural, demographic, economic, environmental, or political. So I want to talk about a few definitions before we get into the thick of things. The first one is migration, up in the top. Migration is a permanent move to a new location. Then we have mobility. Mobility is any type of movement, all types of movement, temporary or permanent. Next up, circulation. Circulation is temporary repetitive movement that recurs on a regular basis. This could be going to work every day, going to school every day, going to the grocery store once a week, going off to college in the fall, going to your summer vacation place. Repetitive, regular basis. Then we have two types of migration. The first one is immigration with an I. I like to think of this as in-migration. Migration to a new place or people coming into a new place. The second one is emigration. I like to think of it as exit migration, so exit. This is migration away from a place, people leaving. When you leave one place, you're an emigrant, and when you go into that new place, you're an immigrant. So the difference between these two numbers in a place, when you have a certain number of people leaving and a certain number of people coming in, is called net migration. So with migration, we have a guy by the name of Ravenstein, and Ravenstein created some laws of migration. He said these are the things that are most common. It basically is almost always the case. His first one says that migration is typically short distance. Most people do not travel far. Think about for yourself, you are more likely to have moved a shorter distance than across the world or across the country. Not saying it doesn't happen, but it's much less likely. The second one is that migration generally occurs in steps. You're more likely to make little stops along the way to go from one city to the next city, one country to the next country, before you get to your ultimate destination. Number 3, long-distance migrants often move to new places of economic opportunity. They're going for the jobs. They're going to cities because cities have lots and lots of jobs, lots of people, lots of jobs. 4, every migration generates a counterflow. A counterflow is just an opposite movement. So you have people coming in, it also means you have people going out. And that's where we get that net migration from the previous slide. Number 5, people in rural areas tend to migrate more than people in cities. You are more likely to move from the country to the city or to a suburban area than from a city to somewhere else. Number 6, males migrate over longer distances than females. Number 7, most migrants are young adult males without familial responsibilities. They don't have anyone to take along. Goes back to that last one. Women are more likely to have children. They're more likely to stay home. Number 8, cities grow more by migration than by natural increase. You grow more by the people coming in than you do by the babies being born there. Number 9, migration increases with economic development. The more developed a city becomes, the more people move there. They want to go to where the money is. It goes back to that number 3, money and jobs, economic opportunity. And number 10, migration is mostly due to economic factors. We really could put this as the top one. The number 1 reason for people to migrate is economic opportunity. So with Ravenstein's law, we kind of come up with this idea of something called the gravity model. And we think about gravity, you have one body, it's drawn to another body, the larger, more pulley body. It says a couple of things. Basically, it predicts the interaction between two things. For migration, as the population of a city increases and as the distance between cities increases, migration to that city decreases. So the city gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the distance gets greater, the cities are less likely to draw migrants. You're more likely to go to somewhere close by. So yeah, we look at things like economic circumstances that are really, really important, but we also want to look at environmental and political ones, as well as cultural and demographic factors. And with that, we get into push and pull factors. So push factors are negative factors that cause a person to leave a particular place, the things that push them out. We don't like it, it pushes us away. Pull factors are positive factors that attract a person to a new place. It's really important to note, one person's push factor might be another person's pull factor. It really just depends. So looking at what these are. Push factors, again, we're pushing someone out of a place. They could be things like a poor job market, low pay, expensive housing, discrimination, racism, war, climate, a bad government, crime, or isolation. There's a whole lot more things that can factor into there, but these are just some of them and some big ones. Pull factors are pulling people into the new place. These include stuff like higher social status, better work opportunities, family, cultural factors, policies from the government usually, climate, safe neighborhoods, and housing. And again, you see that some of these are kind of on both sides, or there's something about them on both sides, because one person's push factor could be another person's pull factor. Or if I have really expensive housing in one area, that might push me out of that area, and affordable housing might pull me into the new area. Think about Seattle. Seattle's very expensive, so a lot of people get pushed out of Seattle and they move into the surrounding areas where it's more affordable, and they're pulled there. So looking at some of these factors, again, the number one reason that people migrate is economic opportunity. This is stuff like employment, wages, housing, cost of living. If a gallon of gasoline costs $12 in one city, but it only costs $2 in another city, that could be a pull factor or a push factor, depending on what side we're on. These things can go both ways. Lack of employment is a push factor. Employment opportunity is a pull factor. Low wages push, high wages pull factor. Then we have cultural factors. These include things like racism or discrimination, or the lack of persecution, like religious, or if a person is homosexual, they might be persecuted in a lot of places, and the lack of in other places. Religious intolerance, unequal treatment, gender roles. Again, they can be both sides. It really just depends on what we're looking at. Then demographic factors. Remember, demographic is the characteristics about the population. So these include things like the population age. Maybe if you're very young, you don't want to live in a community where everybody's very old. Education level, geographic location, gender imbalance, employment opportunities. That goes back to that economic one, but it works here too. Then we have political factors. These include things like the political stability or instability, war or lack of, civil unrest, a weakened economy, and a restrictive government. Most people don't want to live with the bad side of those things, so if they can migrate, they will. Then environmental factors. These include things like climate, the landscape, natural disasters, crop failure, and water scarcity. Really important to note, one person's push factor might be another person's pull factor. Maybe you don't like the heat and humidity, so you move away from the south. Florida doesn't seem so appealing. But if you're older and retiring, maybe you are wanting to go away from cold areas and go to where it's really nice and warm. Maybe also it's more affordable there. So a lot of people retire to Florida, particularly if you live on the East Coast. If you live on the West Coast, a lot of people tend to retire from northern climates to Arizona or New Mexico. They go to where it's warm and to where the cost of living is lower. Okay, that's it. So our learning objective, again, explain how different causal factors encourage migration. And I want you to do two things in your notebook. First, explain how people's perceptions affect migration. How do the way they think about things affect where they go? And secondly, explain why different communities have different push and pull factors. Notice that these two questions are kind of similar. If you missed anything, go back and rewatch it. Make sure you're reading in your textbook. And that's it for today. Have a great day. Bye.